Lori and Michael Thompson appeared to be the epitome of marital bliss. They lived in a quaint suburban home in Portland, Oregon, complete with a white picket fence, and a golden retriever named Max. Michael, a successful architect, was admired for his dedication to his craft, while Lori, a freelance graphic designer, was the picture of grace and creativity. Their friends often joked that they were the couple who had it all: love, stability, and mutual respect. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. Lori had always been the more emotionally expressive of the two, while Michael was pragmatic, often prioritizing work over intimacy. Over time, Lori began to feel invisible, as if her needs were an afterthought in their relationship. She tried to communicate her feelings, but Michael's responses were always the same. "We're fine, Lori. You're overthinking." This emotional neglect planted a seed of resentment in her heart, though she buried it deep, determined to keep up appearances. The turning point came during a dinner party hosted by their neighbors. Michael spent the entire evening engrossed in a conversation about his latest project, barely acknowledging Lori. She sat quietly, sipping her wine, feeling like a ghost in her own life. That night, as she lay in bed beside him, she made a silent vow to herself. She would no longer wait for him to see her. Unbeknownst to Michael, Lori had already begun to seek solace elsewhere. Her infidelity wasn't born out of lust or a lack of love for her husband. It was a desperate cry for validation, a way to feel alive again. And the person who gave her that validation was someone she never expected: her grief counselor, Daniel. Lori's sessions with Daniel began innocently enough. After the sudden death of her father 6 months earlier, she had sought therapy to cope with the overwhelming grief. Daniel, a compassionate and insightful man in his late 40s, had a way of making her feel seen in a way Michael hadn't in years. He listened intently, his questions probing gently but deeply. And for the first time in a long time, Lori felt understood. What started as professional support slowly morphed into something more. Daniel's office became a sanctuary for Lori, a place where she could unravel her emotions without judgment. One session, as she tearfully confessed her feelings of loneliness in her marriage, Daniel reached out and placed a comforting hand on hers. The gesture was small, but it sent a jolt through her, a reminder of the human connection she had been craving. Michael, oblivious to Lori's inner turmoil, continued to pour himself into his work. He had always been a man of routine, and his routine left little room for emotional intimacy. When Lori tried to broach the subject of their relationship, he dismissed her concerns with a tired sigh. "Lori, we're fine. You're just stressed about your dad." His words stung, but they also solidified her resolve to seek comfort elsewhere. By the end of the chapter, Lori and Daniel's relationship had crossed a line. What began as emotional support had escalated into a full-blown affair. Lori justified it to herself as a way to fill the void Michael had left, but deep down, she knew she was playing with fire. Hello there. Do you think this couple will be happy forever? Stay until the end, and you will know. Please subscribe. It helps a lot. Thank you. Lori's days became a delicate balancing act. By day, she was the devoted wife, cooking dinner for Michael and tending to their home. By night, she was a woman reborn, sneaking away to meet Daniel in secluded cafes and quiet parks. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating, but it also weighed heavily on her conscience. She loved Michael, she truly did, but she couldn't deny the way Daniel made her feel alive. Michael, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware. His work on a high-profile skyscraper project consumed him, leaving little energy for anything else. When Lori suggested they take a weekend trip to reconnect, he brushed her off with a vague promise of someday. His indifference only fueled her resentment, making it easier for her to justify her actions. Daniel, for his part, was equally conflicted. He knew their relationship was unethical, but he couldn't deny the connection he felt with Lori. They shared a bond that went beyond the physical, a deep emotional understanding that neither of them had experienced before. Still, he couldn't shake the guilt that came with betraying his professional ethics. As Lori's double life continued, the cracks in her marriage grew wider. She began to notice things she had previously ignored. The way Michael's laughter sounded forced, the way he avoided eye contact during conversations. It was as if they were two strangers living under the same roof, going through the motions of a life they no longer recognized. The tension in the Thompson household reached a boiling point one rainy evening. Michael came home late, as usual, to find Lori waiting for him in the living room. Her eyes were red from crying, and her voice trembled as she confronted him. "Do you even care about me anymore, Michael? Or am I just part of your perfect little life?" Michael, caught off guard, struggled to respond. "Of course I care, Lori. I'm just busy. You know that." His words felt hollow, even to him, and Lori could see the guilt in his eyes. But it was too little, too late. The emotional distance between them had become a chasm, and Lori was no longer willing to bridge it alone. That night, she packed a bag and left, telling Michael she needed space. He didn't try to stop her, too stunned to react. As she drove away, Lori felt a strange mix of relief and despair. She knew her marriage was hanging by a thread, but she also knew she couldn't go back to the way things were. Her destination was Daniel's apartment. When he opened the door, she fell into his arms, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of belonging. But as they sat together on his couch, the weight of their choices hung heavy in the air. They both knew their relationship was built on shaky ground, and the consequences of their actions were inevitable. Michael's world came crashing down when he discovered Lori's affair. It happened by accident. He had been going through her laptop to find a document for work when he stumbled upon an email exchange between her and Daniel. The messages were intimate, filled with words of love and longing that cut him to the core. At first, Michael was in denial. He couldn't believe that Lori, the woman he had built his life with, could betray him so deeply. But as he read through the emails, the truth became impossible to ignore. He felt a mix of emotions, anger, heartbreak, and a gnawing sense of guilt. Had he driven her to this? Confronting Lori was one of the hardest things Michael had ever done. When she returned home, he was waiting for her, the laptop open on the kitchen table. The look on his face told her everything she needed to know. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lori's heart sank as she realized the jig was up. She confessed everything, from the emotional neglect that had driven her to Daniel to the affair itself. Michael listened in stunned silence, his hands clenched into fists. When she finished, he simply walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her guilt. The days that followed were a blur of tension and heartbreak. Michael moved into the guest room, refusing to speak to Lori beyond the bare necessities. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a prison. Lori tried to apologize, to explain, but Michael wasn't ready to listen. Meanwhile, Daniel struggled with his own guilt. He knew he had crossed a line, and the weight of his actions was crushing. When Lori reached out to him, he told her they needed to end things. "This isn't right, Lori. We both know that," he said, his voice heavy with regret. Lori felt like her world was falling apart. She had lost Michael, and now she was losing Daniel too. For the first time in months, she was forced to confront the consequences of her actions. She began to see her affair not as an escape, but as a desperate attempt to fill a void that only she could heal. As the chapter ended, Lori made a decision. She would fight for her marriage, not because it was easy, but because it was the right thing to do. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Michael's trust was shattered, and rebuilding it would take time. But she was willing to try. Michael and Lori's journey toward healing was anything but linear. Their first couples therapy session was a minefield of raw emotions. Michael sat stiffly on the couch, his arms crossed, while Lori fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. The therapist, Dr. Evelyn Carter, a no-nonsense woman with a calming presence, guided them through the initial awkwardness. "This isn't about assigning blame," she said. "It's about understanding each other and finding a way forward." The sessions were grueling. Michael struggled to articulate his feelings, often defaulting to silence or clipped responses. Lori, on the other hand, poured her heart out, recounting the loneliness and emotional neglect that had driven her to Daniel. "I didn't want to hurt you, Michael," she said through tears. "I just wanted to feel seen." As the weeks passed, Michael began to open up. He admitted that he had buried himself in work as a way to avoid confronting his own insecurities. "I thought if I could just provide for us, that would be enough," he confessed. "But I see now that it wasn't." Lori, too, had her own revelations. She realized that her affair with Daniel had been a Band-Aid solution to a much deeper wound. "I thought I needed someone else to make me feel whole," she said. "But I see now that I needed to find that within myself first." Their progress was slow but steady. They started small, weekly date nights, handwritten notes left on the kitchen counter, and honest conversations about their day. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the weight of the betrayal threatened to pull them apart. But they were determined to fight for their marriage, one step at a time. The weekend getaway to the Oregon coast was Michael's idea. He had booked a cozy cabin overlooking the ocean, hoping it would be a chance for them to reconnect without the distractions of their daily lives. Lori was hesitant at first. The thought of spending 3 days alone with Michael, with all their unresolved tension, was daunting. But she agreed, knowing they needed this. The first day was awkward. They walked along the beach in silence, the sound of crashing waves filling the void between them. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Michael finally broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said in therapy," he began. "About feeling invisible. I'm sorry I made you feel that way, Lori. You've always been the most important person in my life, and I hate that I made you doubt that." Lori's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry too, Michael. I should have fought for us instead of running away. I just didn't know how to make you see me." The floodgates opened, and they talked for hours about their fears, their regrets, and their hopes for the future. For the first time in years, they felt like a team again. The next day, they explored the coastal town together, holding hands and laughing like they used to. They visited a small art gallery, where Lori's eyes lit up at a painting of the ocean. Michael, noticing her reaction, bought it for her on the spot. "It's beautiful," she said, touched by the gesture. "Just like you," he replied, his voice soft but sincere. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Michael took Lori's hand. "I don't know if I can forget what happened," he admitted, "but I want to try. I love you, Lori, and I'm willing to fight for us." Lori squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too, Michael, and I'm so sorry for everything. I want to make this work, more than anything." It was a turning point, a moment of clarity and connection that neither of them had felt in years. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long time, they felt hopeful. They had faced the worst and come out the other side, and that was something worth fighting for. Life after the coast trip settled into a rhythm, but it was a rhythm that felt different, more intentional, more deliberate. Michael and Lori were no longer just going through the motions. They were actively working to rebuild their relationship, one day at a time. Michael made a conscious effort to be more present. He started leaving work at the office, setting boundaries that allowed him to be home for dinner most nights. He even took up a new hobby, cooking. It started as a way to surprise Lori with her favorite meals, but it quickly became something he enjoyed. The kitchen, once a place of silence and tension, was now filled with the aroma of spices and the sound of laughter as they cooked together. Lori, for her part, threw herself into her work with renewed passion. She landed a major contract with a local design firm, a project that allowed her to channel her creativity in meaningful ways. She also started volunteering at a grief support group, something she had considered for a long time but never pursued. Sharing her story with others who had experienced loss helped her process her own grief and guilt. It was her way of giving back, of finding purpose in her pain. Their relationship wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension and doubt. Some nights, Michael would wake up in a cold sweat, haunted by the memory of Lori's betrayal. Other times, Lori would catch herself overanalyzing his words, wondering if he truly forgave her. But they had learned to communicate through those moments, to lean on each other instead of pulling away. One evening, as they sat on the porch with Max curled up at their feet, Lori turned to Michael. "Do you ever wonder if we'll ever fully move past this?" she asked, her voice tinged with vulnerability. Michael thought for a moment before answering. "I don't think we'll ever forget it," he said honestly. "But maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's about learning from it and becoming stronger because of it." Lori nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I like that," she said. "Stronger together." As the chapter ended, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars twinkle above. They had come a long way, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, they were ready to face it together. 2 years later, the Thompson household was alive with laughter and warmth. The walls, once bare and sterile, were now adorned with Lori's artwork and photos of their travels. Max, now a little grayer around the muzzle, still greeted them with the same boundless enthusiasm. Their 10th wedding anniversary was approaching, and Michael had planned something special, a vow renewal ceremony. He wanted it to be a celebration of their journey, a testament to the love that had weathered the storm. The day of the ceremony was perfect. The sun shone brightly as friends and family gathered in their backyard, which Michael had transformed into a whimsical garden oasis. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air. Lori, radiant in a simple white dress, walked down the aisle to meet Michael, who stood waiting with tears in his eyes. As they exchanged their vows, the emotion in the air was palpable. "Lori," Michael began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "when I married you 10 years ago, I promised to love you in good times and bad. I didn't know then how hard the bad times would be, but I also didn't know how much stronger they would make us. You are my heart, my home, and my second chance. I vow to never take you for granted again." Lori's hands trembled as she held his. "Michael," she said, her voice breaking, "I made mistakes, but you've shown me what true forgiveness looks like. You've taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other every single day. I vow to honor that choice for the rest of my life." The crowd erupted in applause as they sealed their vows with a kiss. It was a moment of pure joy, a celebration of resilience and love. That evening, as they danced under the stars, Lori rested her head on Michael's shoulder. "Do you think we'll ever stop being that couple who survived an affair?" she asked softly. Michael chuckled, his hand gently stroking her back. "Maybe not," he said, "but I don't mind. It's part of our story, and it's what brought us here." Lori smiled, her heart full. "I love you, Michael Thompson." "I love you too, Lori Thompson," he replied, pulling her closer. As the music played and the night stretched on, they danced together, two souls who had found their way back to each other. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. They had faced their demons, confronted their flaws, and emerged stronger on the other side. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Because love, they had learned, wasn't about perfection. It was about perseverance, forgiveness, and the courage to keep choosing each other, no matter what.